1 second.
You're muted.
All right.
You're muted.
Am I still muted? All right. Oh no, I'm getting feedback. Okay.
Hello.
Good morning, Charlie.
How are you doing?
Pretty good.
Staying out of the snow?
I'm trying to. I'm glad we moved remotely. That definitely helped.
I agree.
We've got Angie.
Yeah, Rachel, I'm not even getting the option to, maybe it's because I'm co-host. I'm going to steal this from you. Hold on.
I was gonna say we're live streaming on YouTube.
Oh, are we? Perfect.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, never mind.
Hi,
Morning,
Angie.
Latifa.
Good morning.
All right, I will be. 1 second.
Hi, Jake.
Hello.
Good morning, Jake.
Morning.
All right, we'll give everyone a few minutes. See who else we can get in.
Good morning.
Morning.
John?
That was my volume test and I failed. Let me find my button here. There we go.
Got much snow down there?
A couple inches still coming down. Trying to keep it north of the interstate.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
It's blowing mostly here.
Not too bad on my window, but yeah, I think out in the county it's blowing a little harder. A lot of trees around here.
I went out and cleaned my drive and it's blowing right back in.
That was probably your county snowplow helping you out. Jake, about the same down there?
Yeah, same down here. Blowing around a couple inches, coming down, but not heavy flakes or anything, you know. It's
Yeah,
kind of
it's like-
powdery.
Yeah, real dry.
Yeah.
Not snowman snow, but it's a lot easier to shovel.
Yeah.
That's what we like.
I still think it's pretty.
100%.
I'm not complaining. We need the moisture.
It's a hard way of getting it, I guess. But
Yeah.
I'm not done with ice fishing, so I kind of like the temperatures too.
Yeah, I know.
Are we gonna have a quorum today? Is anybody counting?
Quorum. So either
Don't
way
know.
should be good.
Rachel, you're a little quiet there.
Oh dear.
Yep.
Is this better?
Oh,
Okay. I'll talk really loud. I'm not sure what's going on there. Alrighty.
Are we ready to start?
I believe we are. Charlie, go ahead and take it away.
All right. Welcome to the February 12th, 2025 MAPA meeting. Motion to approve the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Okay, we got a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
I guess it's passed.
Sorry, my bad. I meant to go around and have everyone do introductions. We do have a new few faces. And then again with that, just as we're doing motions, please go ahead and say your name, as it can be a little difficult to tell who's necessarily talking over the Zoom. So just some best practices there. So I'll go ahead and get started. I'm Rachel Getch. I'm the new RPA team lead with MAPA. Mia Haschenberger has moved on to a new role with the City of Lincoln. Latifa Mora, she's going to be our new second as well. And then I'll pass that on to Lindsay.
okay. Lindsay, transportation planner here with MAPA. Just most people in the room probably know, but just in case, I used to run RPA before Mia took over. And now it's Rachel's thing. So I'm kind of just here to help out and talk a bit about our civil rights policy today. So I'll pass it over to Latifa.
My name is Latifa Moro. I'm the new transportation planner at MAPA, and today is my first meeting. So, hello.
Jarvis Muganja, new seat administrator, Harlan, Iowa. Before I got to this role, I was the CEO of the credit union here in town. So, coming from the banking into this, so yeah.
Jarvis.
Hey,
Jake.
Jake Farrow, Mills County engineer. I'm on the technical committee chair, I guess.
Yeah, I'm Charlie Parkhurst, chairman of policy. Well, of the whole thing, I guess. John.
John Rasmussen, Pottawattamie County Engineer, Technical Committee, and today I get to be a proxy.
Okay. Do we have anybody else?
Yeah, Angie Winquist from Glenwood, City of Glenwood, Mayor. Jamie is pushing snow, so he won't be with us today.
Hi, Angie.
Hi.
We got Richard Crouch, Mills County Supervisor, RPA member.
Hi, Richard.
How you doing, Charles?
Good so far. Keep my head above the snow.
I suppose I'll go. I'm Brad Grief. I'm a ComDev planner here at MAPA. Just trying to find a way to get ComDev and Transpo on the same page going forward.
Brad. We got anybody else?
Chris, did you go already? Well,
Okay.
Chris Fredrickson is on as well. I don't know if he's got some audio issues or
He probably took a nap.
his video's on, so we know he's here. But
We can't hear you, Chris. Sorry.
yeah.
Otherwise, feel free to go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat as well if you're having audio troubles.
All right, I'll proceed. John made a motion and I had a second to approve the agenda. All in
I'll
favor?
second it. Jarvis here, so
Yeah, Jarvis seconded it.
yep.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Everybody read the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Richard Crouch approves.
Motion by Richard. Do I have a second?
Second, Winquist.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, we'll start with civil rights policy.
So that's me. So super quick, I think this was brought up at one of the previous meetings, but as a recipient of federal funds, MAPA has to ensure that our activities and meet the requirements of several interrelated laws and executive orders pertaining to the prevention of discrimination against protected groups and ensuring fair participation and inclusion in the public planning process. So Rachel, if you can go next slide, please. So MAPA's civil rights policy kind of serves as the formal policy and procedure document for three key areas. And these areas are Title VI, limited English proficiency, and the Americans with Disabilities Act. So this policy outlines not only how these regulations are implemented, but also the formal complaint procedure for Title VI and ADA. This policy needs to get updated every 3 years and was last updated in 2022. So this is kind of the culmination of the most recent update. Next slide, please. So on this slide here, we've got the exact wording of MAPA's civil rights policy statement, which assures that no person shall be excluded from MAPA programs or activities, that MAPA will monitor compliance with Title VI in all sub-awards, and that it is the responsibility of the Title VI coordinator to initiate and monitor Title VI activities. So our Title VI coordinator at this time is our executive director, Mike Helgerson. And this statement here is to be posted to MAPA's website, the office lobby, and included in all significant publications for distribution to the public. And this statement hasn't changed since the previous version of the civil rights policy. Next slide, please. So some quick list of updates that have been made since the 2022 policy. We went through and updated our demographic snapshots based on the latest 5-year American Community Survey data. We incorporated some updated guidance from both Nebraska DOT and Iowa DOT, just because MAPA as an organization kind of spans both states. So we needed to assure that we were meeting both of those requirements. And we also conducted a committee demographic survey and have the results of that survey presented in this policy update. So the plan also outlines several actions for MAPA to take in the coming years to kind of increase both our equity activities and engagement, as well as our general policy compliance. So we've updated our complaint forms to be a fillable PDF that's now available in both English and Spanish. Historically, it was just available in English and it was kind of a Word doc situation, so it's a little more user-friendly now. We're also exploring translation options for the MAPA website, and we're working to formalize staff training and onboarding materials for new staff with regards to Title VI activities and compliance. So this draft policy was presented to the MAPA Board of Directors at the January meeting on the 23rd, and they formally approved and adopted that plan. It was open for public comment from December to January, and we did not receive any public comments on this policy. So now we're taking it to the RPA Policy Board and Technical Committee for final approval and adoption. And once that takes place, we'll be forwarding it to our partners at Federal Highway and FTA. So if anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, happy to answer those now.
No questions or comments?
How is it impacted with diversity, equity, inclusion? Can this
Yes, that-
correlate it?
That is a great question, Jervis. So there are definitely some executive orders that were revoked with a lot of the recent actions being undertaken by the current administration. Title VI, LEP, and ADA specifically are not in those lists of revoked orders. So those three pieces of legislation, which are kind of the main three that this policy centers around, are not changing. So that's still being maintained. There was a revocation of a lot of the environmental justice aspects, and there is an environmental justice analysis that's included in this policy. It might be that next time we go to update, that analysis is removed, but at this time, MAPA is still committed to equity, diversity, and inclusion. So we're keeping that in the policy, and we're still trying to make sure that that's part of our work moving forward.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Any more questions or comments? If not, do we have a motion to approve?
Does the technical make a recommendation to the policy then?
So for this item, it's actually going to be a joint vote. So if you're on technical or policy, feel free to make the motion and second. Either way.
Okay, I would make the motion to approve. Pharaoh?
John Rasmussen, I'll second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Thanks so much, guys. So Charlie, we're going to send you a resolution here after this meeting. Just if you can sign that and send it back to us, and we'll get that into the plan, and that would be fantastic.
All righty.
Thanks.
Okay, next is transportation alternatives.
Okay. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yep.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so we opened up the FY 2026 call for projects for the Transportation Alternatives Set-Aside Program. That was back in October. It closed at the end of January. We did not receive any applications for that program, which means we will not be going forward with a public comment period or any type of project selection. Just as a review for when we open the call for projects up again this coming October, this is what is currently programmed. As you can see, this is not including FY 2029. Oops, sorry about that. We will be updating this table to include that. So really the number on here, as you see in that lower right corner on the table, is going to be closer to 800,000 by the time we take all 5 years coming into account. So that's a lot of funds. We want to make sure we're using these, and some of the projects that we already have in here, we want to confirm with those communities. I know Glenwood, we've been in conversations with to make sure that we can look at the projects that we have programmed and make sure that we can try and push those through and make progress on those projects. Same thing for the other ones. We want to make sure that we're moving along with those and that we can continue developing these programs in our communities. So just as for the next call for projects, there's a lot of funds available. We want to make sure we're programming that. So please, when those come around, be thinking of projects that might be relevant to your communities ahead of time. And we're available as MAPA staff to help you think through that, maybe come up with some ideas on what that looks like and answer any questions you have about that program. So if you have any thoughts on that, feel free to talk to Lindsay, Carlos, or I, and we'll do our best with answering those questions. But just for the future, in October when we open this next, please go ahead and apply. There's a lot of room to do some really cool projects in our communities. Alrighty. So we'll go on from there. Is there any questions about that before I go on?
What's the available funding for next year? Is it
So
I'm hung up in the federal fiscal year, I think. That's through October, right? So
right. So we do have these these are currently planned in FY 2025, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around this a little bit as well. So that's through the end of this October, right? And so
Yeah, so those are through the end of this October, but a lot of these are going to need to roll over into federal 26. So that deficit that we've got there of $18,000, that will go away once we add the 26 funding to that, and we'll have that 183 that we're seeing in that column under fiscal 26, because all of those programs will still be in this list.
Okay, the next call for projects would be the 183,000.
Correct. It is worth noting, though, that fiscal constraint for this only needs to be over the course of the entire TIP program, which is through 2028. So we can kind of borrow from future years as needed, so long as the entire program up through 28 is within fiscal constraint. So it's not like a year by year thing, which is why we're kind of able to have that negative 18,000 balance in 25.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Lindsay, I just spoke with systems planning. Sorry to interrupt on this. We just received word that they're going to look at fiscal constraint a little bit more tightly going forward with this new administration. So what Lindsay said is correct, but I want to asterisk that this might change with new regulations and information coming down from the DOTs right now. But it does look like a good portion of the funding will be carried over to 26. Future funds are still available at their current programming. So,
yeah, thanks, Carlos. Yeah, I appreciate that answer.
Yeah, sorry about that. That just came in hot, like 2
No,
minutes.
that was a good thing to point out too. And I will say that the way we're set up right now, we don't currently have a deficit for 26, so our next TIP should be within that fiscal constraint, even if it becomes more restrictive on a year-by-year basis moving forward. There have also been some questions about general funding allocations under the new administration, and we did have a call with Iowa DOT this morning, all of the MPOs and RPAs, and they've told us to proceed as normal. They don't have any anticipation of any reduction in STBG or TASA funds. The one funding stream that might be on the chopping block, which isn't necessarily as relevant for us as an RPA, is what's called the Carbon Reduction Program. But that's a sub-allocation of STBG that was only really given to those larger urban MPO areas. So that's not going to have an impact on the RPA funding. Do you have any other questions, concerns, comments?
All right, so we wanted to go over, there's a rural discretionary grant program. We're just going to run through a little bit of what that is and what opportunity that might be for your communities. So this is a federal discretionary program through the US DOT. It's applicable for your state governments, the county governments, and cities can apply, which is the most relevant to you all. This is specifically for transportation projects that advance planning and design, and it can also help with different supportive activities such as hiring. We're looking into whether it can acquire software. I know SWIPCO was interested in that for one of their transit initiatives. The application is due in April 3rd, and this is first come, first serve. So basically, as soon as, if you're intending to apply, we want to get that in as soon as possible because that'll increase your chance of getting funding. The nice part about this specific opportunity is that there's no local match required. It's 100% federal, which is great for you guys because it can be difficult to get local match from smaller communities. So this is a really good opportunity. One of the interesting things about this program is that there's two types. You can either apply as a single project for up to 10 million, or I'm sorry, there's 10 million allotted to that project type, or you can do multi-community grants, which is somewhat relevant to the RPA. If several of our communities within RPA wanted to apply together, that makes you applicable for the multi-community grant, which is a higher amount, and potentially you could, it would be a lot more efficient to run a project that way across multiple communities if it was applicable. Is there any questions about that? I know we ran through that kind of fast.
It'd still be the federal requirements for consultant selection, right? It would still be the RFP system.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to just point out that this is a good opportunity to come together on a specific project that might cross a couple different jurisdictions. I know we've talked to the city of Elkhorn over in Shelby County about what their wants and needs are. One of the challenges that we have is finding that initial funding for the PE. My personal taste of developing projects is trying to get a good solid PE so that we can get a good construction estimate. I personally don't like doing projects with just very bad numbers, I want to say, right? So the more work we could put up front to understand the wants and needs of the local communities, to develop a really solid construction game plan, the easier and faster we get through these. I love this 100% match. Happy to have additional staff hours to talk through whatever projects you guys want. We also offer the availability with Brad now to help write some portion of this, right? So let us know how we can help you and make successful applications for the region.
Any more questions or comments?
Would it be eligible to use this planning grant to hire somebody to write a different grant for the IAJA stuff, or is that stacking too much stuff?
I think that would be pushing it.
That's what we do
that
here.
Might be a little bit of a gray area. I can reach out and maybe ask that question to.
I can read that too, I guess.
The grant staff. Yeah, that'd be a little unusual, I would say. You might need to build that into a project that you're currently looking into applying for, and then looking at technical support for that, if that makes sense. Yeah. Any other questions? Alrighty. We'll keep going. All right. So I know we talked a little bit about this last time we were looking at the bylaws. This is something we're still looking at reviewing kind of piece by piece. At our last November meeting, I know it's been a while. We have a few new faces. We're going to go back and we're going to review some of the small community representation and look over some additional information we've come across since that conversation, because I know there was some questions about that and how that would look like. And so this is still a discussion. We're not taking any action on this today, but just to keep the conversation moving and to get some new information out into the group. All right. So just as it stands right now, here's some background. Our current bylaws state that membership within the RPA 18 is the counties, the 4 counties, and cities exceeding 5,000 population. Currently, that has been, or historically, that has been Glenwood and Harlan. One of the interesting things about Harlan, though, is that with the redistribution of boundaries, the city fell under that 5,000 population requirement. It's like right under. But we want to maintain that membership if at all possible. And so we want to look at different efforts and things we can do to maintain that within the group, because we think that representation is really important and valuable. So along with that, Iowa DOT also gave us a review of the way we run our current processes within the RPA and on the administration side, and they recommended that we look at a representative for these small communities. So Travis Holm, who used to be at MAPA and he's now with Iowa DOT, he gave us some background for what this might look like. Other communities for RPA 9, so that's Muscatine and Scott counties, they have adopted 3 different community members, and what that looks like is they have it broken down. So they have like several slightly larger cities that might be over that 5,000 limit for them, And then they've bunched those with a bunch of villages that are under the 5,000 limit. And then they've given them one representative out of the mayors of all of those communities. So out of the 40 of those communities, they've pulled out 3 of those mayors, and each committee member that is a small community, a representative for these small communities, is allotted representation for, 15-ish communities that fall under that. Some are larger and some are smaller, and then they kind of have it broken out evenly. And then of course the larger communities within that committee representation, I think Davenport is one of them within RPA 9. They obviously are large enough that they would have their own representation. RPA 14, that's a little closer to home. They are also looking at establishing the small community representation. That Iowa DOT recommendation for small community representation is something that they are giving to every RPA that doesn't currently have it, because they think that's a valuable to those communities and to the populations that currently aren't represented under our membership. And just to give a voice to those smaller communities and give them a more of a voice and an opportunity to look into projects that might be relevant to their communities. The way we're currently defining that is any city village under 5,000. One of the questions that we're asking is, do we want to change what that looks like within RPA 18? And so I put together a little table. So I'm going to walk us all through this really quick, just to get an idea of what it might look like if we were to change some of the representation. And then we'll go over some options for what that might look like for our region specifically.
Rachel, can you zoom in on this a bit?
Yes.
Awesome, thank you.
That better?
Much better, thanks.
Perfect. Okay. So you'll notice I don't have the counties in here. I have them sorted separately, so we won't be looking at the counties, but specifically for the cities and villages, we'll be looking at those. So you've noticed I've highlighted Glenwood and Harlan. Those are the ones that currently have representation. This is basically the threshold that they meet over here in this right-hand column. We want to maintain the Harlan committee membership, even though it's slightly below that 5,000. And there is precedent for that within other communities that have also kind of come across the same problem, where maybe they redistributed boundaries and now all of a sudden a community that was large enough is slightly under that threshold. So there's a precedent for that as well. If we're looking at communities, say under 1,000, and we were to say, okay, we're going to have a caucus representative for the communities that are over 1,000. These would be the communities that would fit inside that. There is the question of how we would want to handle these communities that are in between counties. That is something that I would like to hear the opinion of membership about. Again, if we have that cutoff as 500, which was what Mia presented on at our last meeting, we kind of broke that down a little bit more. It would include these communities. And so obviously this is a lot of cities. We wouldn't necessarily want a representative from each of these cities. I think that might be, a little bit harder to handle when it comes to quorum and membership. Those were some concerns that were voiced at our last meeting. And, we heard that. We wanted to come back with some other ideas. And so, but what we are looking at is something more like a caucus representative or something similar to that, where we'd have a singular or similar number. Maybe that would be a couple of representatives that would cover these communities wherever we wanted that cutoff to hit. If it was more than 500, it would be, all of these communities. If it was just over 1,000, it'd be over those as well. However far down population wise, it starts to get kind of thin here towards the bottom. So wherever the committee the membership is thinking that we want to have that cutoff, we are definitely willing to work with that and what you guys think is most reasonable. So let me come back here and we'll look at a few of the options. All right, So option 1, current membership remains the same, and then we just add 1 rotating caucus small community representative. So that would be 1 member from those smaller communities, whatever cutoff we decided. So that's kind of a separate question on where we want that cutoff to hit. And then we'd have 1 that a member of those communities, and then they would just rotate out. Maybe one time it would be, let's hop back. Maybe one time it would be someone from Avoca, right? And then the next season it would be someone from Logan, and so on and so forth. Just to keep it mixed up a bit and to keep that representation active. That could be more than 1 representative if we wanted it to be. It doesn't just have to be 1 rotating, it could be several. So option 2, again, current membership remains the same, and then we could add a 1 small community representative for each county. Now what that could look like, we'll hop back over to our table here. You'll notice that if we take over 1,000, and we're specifically looking at, let's say, Harrison, over 1,000, we have Missouri Valley, we have Woodbine, we have Logan, and we've got Dunlap, which is partially in Crawford. If we're looking at those communities, we would say, okay, there's 4 communities that are over 1,000. We're going to give them a collective caucus membership for those 4 communities. And then we'd go in and we'd give another one for Avoca and Oakland and Trainer, and so on and so forth for the other counties as well. So then there'd be a total of 4 additional representatives for the counties, and those small communities that are held in those counties. So that's option 2. Option 3 is we maintain current membership, except for Glenwood and Harlan would essentially just be redesignated as the small community representatives for Mills and Shelby. And then it's basically just a copy of option 2, where we're just adding those 2 small community representatives for Pottawattamie and Harrison. And then option 4 are anything else that the membership thinks sounds good. What are you guys thinking? Do you have any thoughts on those options? Any questions? I know we went through that a little bit fast.
So we can back up to Harlan. They're below 5,000. Are we going to correct that threshold, or are we just going to ignore that? I feel like we need to draw a different line in the sand. If they want to stay in, then they can't make 5,000, and maybe 2,500 is the number. I guess I'd like to see us adjust that. And I'm saying 2,500 because that brings in Missouri Valley. I'm kind of speaking for Harrison County here. There's really only 1 policy vote in Harrison County. And every other county in the group has 2, whether it's a city or 2 for the county. Everybody else has 2. So I guess if we're going to do some realignments with the towns, I think Missouri Valley and Harrison ought to be a member as well as Harlan.
For sure, and that's an excellent point. That's one of the questions. That is certainly an option. We could. There's kind of 2 questions here. One is, where do we want that membership threshold to be, and then what do we want small community representation to look like? So there's kind of 2 separate questions built into this that are kind of interrelated to one another. And so we need to kind of answer that first question of, okay, what does the threshold want to look like? But that threshold also will affect that small community representation question and answer as well.
I guess I still think the board members represent these communities passionately. I don't know that they're not represented, but that's neither here nor there, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that they are represented in the sense that their counties are represented, but they're not represented in the fact that maybe they live in these communities and these are smaller towns, and maybe they have specific concerns or projects that they wish they could do that they maybe don't necessarily have opportunity for or even know who to talk to about them. They just don't have the resources to even know how to approach it. And one of the things that the RPA can do is that MAPPA staff are available to help kind of support that process a little bit and to provide a little bit more of that resource for, okay, this is maybe how you would apply for a grant. This is how, you know, that process looks like, and just kind of like being able to walk those smaller communities through projects that maybe aren't big enough on the county level, but are important to these smaller communities.
I completely agree with you. And I think representation of a small town, because most of these small towns are dying out. And the most of people in the community in those small towns, I mean, when it comes to grant writing and resources and stuff, most of them don't utilize technology because it's a small town, less than 1,000, and it pretty much depend on the county aspect of it. So by reaching out to them and be able to allow them to understand what's going on in the higher level and give the support, to me, it's the key thing. Probably that could change the mentality of those small towns.
I feel like what John normally touches on is, you know, it's almost like beating a dead horse at this point, but it's true that the small towns they're not equipped to facilitate these projects. I mean, I had a small community reach out to me. They received some sort of grant for a bridge, but they don't have any money for design or for construction administration. And they're not even in my county. And they want to know if we can offer help. And it's like, no, we can't. And so bringing on representation, it just, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. It kind of looks nice, maybe, but effectively, it's not going to get any more projects done because they're not going to be able to facilitate them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Giving them the option to know what's happening, though, is also important. Even if they can't necessarily do it internally, we're giving them the opportunity to have access to tools and to people that do know how they might be able to get it done, or even just connections, right? I have a feeling, you know, these small communities aren't necessarily super connected to the counties or even know who to talk to on the county level. But if we're giving them this forum where they have connections, you know, to you, Jacob, or John, or Chris, or whoever, you know, that looks like, then all of a sudden, you know, like they have a stronger contact, they might have some extra context on what even they can do, so that you guys don't have to go back and explain, okay, this is what it's going to look like. They're going to already have some of this education background just from being involved in the committee on what things look like and how to maybe proceed on their own end.
And also, too, in grants, I mean, matching grants and stuff like that, could be somebody in that community have funds that can say, you know what, I'll match with what's available and not just to kill the project because, you know, man, we need $500,000. The matching grant is 250, and somebody in the community that has funds and say, you know what, I'll throw 250 to match that and do this project. So giving them that opportunity, at least to see what's going on and the knowledge, you'll be surprised out of 5 that could utilize the grants and opportunities that they can give through the program.
But these are public meetings, right? So they could represent themselves now, correct?
They could, but I think there is a difference between saying, hey, there's this random meeting that you could pop into versus like, hey, you actually have a voice here and it matters and you have a vote and you can actually have a say in what's happening to some level. In addition, I'll just tie this a little bit back into that rural grant opportunity we were talking about. There are several opportunities like that where local match is not required. And so all of a sudden that opens a lot more doors to what these small communities can do because they don't have to worry about the funding. They just have to worry about application and then administering those funds. And, you know, that's part of what this group here is for, is to be able to help those communities figure out how to do that and build a little bit more into that education piece. So that's just a thought for consideration. Again, this isn't anything that we're going to be making a decision on right now. I just want to get this in your guys' heads and let you guys know what other communities are doing in the Iowa RPAs and what Iowa DOT has recommended that we has recommended that we adopt. Unfortunately, Scott, Sarah, and Travis Holm, they had the quarterly meeting this morning that overlapped with our RPA meeting, so they weren't able to make it. Otherwise, I'm sure they would have additional comment on that and have something extra to add there. But yeah. Any other comments or questions before we move on?
Could you review those communities and see if they have, I guess I keep thinking of STBG, but if they don't have an eligible route in town, I guess I don't see the point of their membership, but maybe they could still get TAP funds or other services. But kind of with Jake, I kind of resigned myself to like, well, we can do it. I think they're going to be incredibly frustrated with the whole process when they find out it really doesn't hit them like they hope it will. But I mean, I don't mind them being included. I just don't think they're going to enjoy it much.
Yeah, and I think part of it is this education component, John. This whole aspect that, you know, certain projects may not be best done or completed in a timely fashion with federal funds, right? And this allows an opportunity for that to be further discussed. Look, when I meet with local communities, that's my first question, right? Like, we understand that federal funds are available. However, right, there are specific requirements that you have to meet with federal funds, right? On the SCBG side, yes, there's location matters, right? I think it's rural collector and above for SCBG. TASA, the transportation alternatives, that condition is not there. There's also conditions for safe routes to school. And safe routes to school doubles up into an education component, right? And it also doubles up into infrastructure, right? Speed humps, bulb outs, et cetera, et cetera. And so understanding some of that and being able to walk people through some of these components. And John, I don't know how much education components you guys are doing for safe routes to school, but like, I would love to have some education components for safe routes to school in the coming years. I mean, I think that would be excellent and well worthwhile to try to do something like that in some of these rural communities. Would be, I don't know if it could happen, but it would be nice. But yeah, I think that component of trying to educate, look, I'm trying to get out there as much as I can. My staff is trying to get out there as much as we can, but having more voices and more people to be able to say, hey, look at MAPA, let's go to MAPA and let's attend these meetings, right? We're trying to get more people to understand the value that we're providing and to set them in the right and correct path to finding out the best resources available to deliver projects, right? Ultimately, that's the grade that is how we're graded, right? The delivery of projects. I don't like seeing projects go from 1 year to the next I want things to get done. And so the best way to do that is always to educate some of the local communities and or help each other out, right? We've had conversations between the state and different communities to try to understand what some of the gaps are, right? We're happy to do that. That's one of the key roles that we play. And we just see this as an opportunity to help and enhance some of that.
Perfect. Thank you, Carlos. All right, Charlie, I think we're good to move on to public comment unless we have anything else to add.
Okay, do we have any public comments? If not, do we have any additional business?
I'm actually going to pop into that topic. We do have some additional map updates. First off, there are a few more grants that we will be looking over in March, just as kind of a heads up. One of the grants that we got an award for, some of you might remember the SS4A, Safe Streets for All RPA grant that we received. As some of you might be aware, things are moving around on the federal level. We don't exactly know what some of these grant awards are going to end up as, or if things are going to get redistributed, moved around. We don't know if that's going to be stable going forward, but we're moving forward with procurement of consultations for the Safe Streets for All RPA project currently, just as an update so you guys are aware. And then one other opportunity that is actually tomorrow is MAPA is hosting an Iowa elected and appointed officials training. There's also one for the Nebraska side that's a little bit less relevant, but the one for Iowa is tomorrow and it'll be at the Trainer Community Center. If you didn't have a chance to look at my email that I sent out, I think it was last week, just here's some more information about that. This would be really good for our newer members or even those who just want a review of, you know, what does it mean to be an elected appointed official? What are some good tools that might go along with that? So we've got an agenda over here. It is $10, which is just includes light dinner, but you can attend for part of it if you want. You don't have to be there for the whole thing. We just ask, if possible, that you go ahead and register so that we know how many people are going to be coming. They will be ordering food tonight, so if we can get those numbers in, that would be fantastic. So I just really encourage you guys to attend that. And yeah, if you have any questions, I will actually also be in attendance tomorrow. So there will be a familiar face. You can feel free to come up to me and ask any questions you have.
Any questions or comments?
I would like to touch on one last bit of information and things going on in the MAPA region. I think Rachel alluded to this, but we're also looking at how do we help local communities achieve additional benefits from state, federal, or different sources. And one of the opportunities is looking at, and we'll talk about this next month, the Iowa, I am blanking on the name, Rachel. Oh my God. Destination Iowa.
Destination Iowa, yeah.
Sorry. Destination Iowa. We've been working with Pottawattamie Conservation District to look at how to leverage some of this funding to continue the great work in connecting the Great American Trail, which would connect the city of Council Bluffs through Pottawattamie County out over to Avoca and then further east. And so this is part of the Great American Trail and some big push and big concentration on that front. We're trying to work with Pottawattamie Conservation District to try to understand how do we fill this gap in a timely manner? What resources can we obtain and how do we best leverage some of these resources to get some of these big discretionary dollars to build this thing in one shot? That would be my goal, but again, that's just speaking for me. This is some additional work, and one of the reasons why Brad is on the call today. This is some of the areas that we've been kind of exploring and trying to understand further. How do we make these gaps, these trail projects that have not taken movement or have not moved in a couple years? How do we advance them and accelerate them to get the benefits that we need today, right? So that's also an opportunity, something we've been looking at and trying to understand further. And as far as federal legislation, things still remain fluid. I think some things to note on the Iowa side. A couple of weeks ago, we did get notice about the hands-free bill that was introduced and furthered in the Transportation Committee. Again, one of the main focuses for MAPA and the region as a whole is promoting and pushing safety. So this is something that we'd like to support. And if you need additional information, let us know. We're happy to share about that bill and what's going on the Iowa legislative side. I think that's all I have for now. Thanks.
Okay, anything further? If not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Richard, motion to adjourn.
Motion by Richard. Do I have a second?
Rasmussen, I'll second.
Second by John. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe out there.
Thank you. Stay warm.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.